Hi, I'm Carlene Marone, and I'm with Living Well in Cape Coral and EXP Realty. And this is my good friend here, Margie Tann, with Florida Insurance and Financial. And we're going to talk a little bit about the insurance business and Cape Coral and all the fun things that I'm going to have questions for.
Sounds
so,
good.
so let's just start a little bit. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you came to own a lead Florida insurance business?
Again, I went to Kent State University in Ohio,
Mhm.
graduated from there, and about a year after that, went into the insurance business. So I've been an agent for 40 years.
Okay.
Um,
Don't do the math.
I was 5.
Yeah.
I've been married for 40 years. I have 2 sons. Each one have a little girl, so I have 2 beautiful granddaughters.
And they're so cute.
And they are, and they're such a big part of my heart. And moved here in 2010.
Okay.
Continue down in the field, and so it's been almost 16 years here working as an agent,
Right.
and 8 years owning my agency.
Okay, great. So you've been working with clients in Cape Coral and Lee County then for 16 years.
Almost 16 years. I
Yes, that's great. What types of insurance do you specialize in?
Well, when I got my license, it was for both property and casualty and life insurance, health insurance, but I've always focused on property and casualty insurance. So that's
Okay,
my specialty. And my
great.
agency is a property and casualty agency.
All right. So insurance rates have been a big topic lately. What are you seeing right now today in Florida?
Well, we had a rough 3 years, to say the least.
Hmm.
Personally, and my agency, I mean, it was a rough time. But now we're seeing a downturn in rates. Not like they went up,
Yes.
but it definitely is a downturn.
Hmm.
The market is called a hard market, but I believe,
What does that mean?
well, a hard market means the insurance companies got the rain,
Okay.
and the driving force of what we're doing, the rates. A soft market is where we can pick and choose, oh, we want
Hmm.
this and we can get credits for this. It's no more.
Okay.
So, but I believe that Florida is the hard market because Florida is really hard to insure. So
Hmm.
we have big claims, we have big storms, we have big litigations, and that is really the driving force for our rates. It's very hard for insurance companies to even get their own insurance, and that's called a reinsurance.
Right.
So, reinsurance is like when you have your home and auto insurance and you purchase an umbrella policy.
Yeah.
So, insurance companies basically need an umbrella policy, and that's called
Right.
reinsurance. So, when they're not able to get that or the rates are exorbitant, it always trickles down to us.
Okay. So, are there any other main factors driving rates for homeowners?
Other than the ones that I gave,
Yeah.
not really. I
Okay.
mean,
All right.
it's pretty much
Are
our
there,
environment.
yes. Are there, so you kind of probably just answered this too. Are there differences in Cape Coral or Lee County properties being impacted in the way they're being impacted compared to some of the other areas?
We are,
Aside from the big H word that we're not going to use.
yeah, well, we're the Gulf Coast, so
Yeah.
we have wind issues. It's called wind.
Right.
So on a commercial policy, many times we're going to see where they will not offer wind. So you insure a business on Fort Myers Beach, you may not have hurricane coverage, which is wind.
Mhm.
But, oh, sorry. We've been really blessed, I have
I
to
know,
say.
because I wouldn't let anybody use that word last
Uh,
year. That was on me.
yeah, okay, good. Thank you, Carlene. But I feel like the media
Yeah.
really jumps on, oh, it's going to be really bad, and then people are like, oh my gosh, what we went through with Ian, I feel like was such an eye opener for every single one of us,
Right.
including the insurance companies. But
Absolutely. Are newer homes or older homes being affected differently with the
absolutely,
insurance?
when you purchase a new brand spanking new home, you're going
Mhm.
to get a much better rate than if you have an older home.
Definitely, definitely. And in Cape Coral, you can get some good buys on new homes. They might not be right on a canal where the older homes are. And some people, location is more important than the age of the home. But I think there's something for everybody. And it's good to know that there's an incentive if you're buying a newer home for
Absolutely.
your
And the more
insurance.
inland you go, I feel as though I'm going to use that word, the hurricane rate is less going
Right,
inland than if
right.
you're right there in the Gulf.
Good to know. So let's talk about some changes and challenges in the local market. What changes have you seen in underwriting or carrier requirements over the past few years? And have they loosened up at all since?
Well, I waited with bated breath, as they say, for that 3-year mark from Hurricane Ian,
Right,
because if you had a claim for hurricane, you had to show proof that everything was repaired because
right.
many people didn't. They took the money and they
I have
ran.
seen that
Mhm.
firsthand. Yes.
So, like when I'm insuring a home for, let's say, one of your buyers,
Mhm.
and there was a claim that popped up, if I couldn't show proof that the claim or the money received was for the repairs or brand new roof, then we had a big problems insuring that.
Right,
So, to answer your question, yes, things have let up. But if your home had $100,000 claim, they're still going to want proof that that was taken care of.
right. So you mentioned roof, and the next question was, are there certain property features that are becoming more important to insurance companies? So obviously we know the roof. Is there anything else
All mechanical.
on mechanical?
So we call that a 4-point inspection.
Mhm.
And especially in an older home, you need a 4-point inspection.
Right.
That 4 points is regarding the roof, plumbing, air conditioning, and the electrical. So if your 4 point has been, or that those 4 points have been addressed, and you have brand new air conditioning or an air conditioner that's not 20 years old, so they want the air conditioner updated. Plumbing, you know, you're not going to replumb the whole house most of the time. However, if you have new bathrooms and newer kitchens and the shut-off valves, the corrosion on a shut-off valve, so all of that definitely comes into play in insuring a
Absolutely.
home.
Absolutely. And I would say most every house that was in within the past couple of years that I have sold either on the seller side or the buyer side had at least one shut off valve that needed some love.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
What surprises homeowners the most when they review their policy renewal or their new policy
Price.
price? Okay, so let's talk about some practical advice for homeowners. What are a few things homeowners can do better to position themselves for coverage or more favorable rates?
We're going to go back to those 4 points.
Hmm.
A wind mitigation is equally important. So you may get a new roof put on, but if you don't get yourself a new wind mitigation inspection, then the credits that
Hmm.
you would get from having that aren't going to be there.
Right.
So if you've got a new roof, definitely a wind mitigation inspection.
Hmm.
When you're going to search for a renewal, so we remarket every single renewal here in my
Hmm.
agency, both auto and homeowners. So a lot of times we're remarketing, finding a better rate, but if it doesn't make sense to get all new inspections, then a lot of people just stay where they're at.
Right.
So, with that being said, maintaining your home in the condition it should be, behind the toilets, making sure there's no corrosion and things like that, keeping up on the maintenance of your home will help your
Hmm.
insurance rate.
Yeah, and that's important if you're thinking of selling your home, holding on to those inspections. It's been really advantageous to some of the buyers I've worked with if the seller had a recent wind mitt to be able to
Absolutely.
provide that makes the closing process go more
A wind
smoothly.
mitigation will last you 5 years, but a
Mhm.
4 point is over every year.
Every year. Good to know. Good to know. So, are there common mistakes you see homeowners make when it comes to their insurance?
Um, I do. I've seen people increase their deductibles so that, God forbid, when that
Yeah.
H word comes, it's almost basically unaffordable to repair their home because they have instead of having a 2% hurricane deductible, they have 5 or 10%. And they did that because they wanted to save money,
Right, a lower rate.
a lower rate.
That's a shame. That's a shame. How often do you think people should be reviewing their policies?
I thought about that when I was a little bit earlier today. So we remarket every
Mhm.
year. But as far as a review goes, if, out of sight, out of mind.
Right,
So this is my life for the last 40 years. I know this stuff hand,
right, right. You
all the
know when
time. I do
something
everything.
changes.
But an insured does not. So when I'm reviewing or we are reviewing to remarket, then would be a good time for an insured to call in and say, hey, let's have a refresher. Please give me a call, whatever. And then we just go over everything again. And they may have a different mindset of their deductibles or coverages than they did when we wrote it.
Yeah, because things happen. Life
It
changes.
does.
Yeah.
And then also, when people do an addition or they put in a pool or they get a screen enclosure, that's not an automatic. So it needs to be an agent, your agent, hopefully me,
Hmm.
need to be called and discussed. Yes, we just added $100,000 worth of work. Does that
Right.
impact my replacement cost?
Yep. Yep. I'm lucky because you're my bestie.
Yes, I
So
was always on top of that.
you mentioned commercial before. Let's talk to our local business owners for a little bit. What are some insurance considerations they often overlook?
Again, maintaining the property. So if we get a call and the buyer's looking for a commercial building and that building hasn't been updated in 30 years, you're going to be hard pressed
Right.
to insure the building. Wind,
Mm,
wind is very important, but a lot of buildings are superior built in the commercial world.
right.
So if you have concrete pour and concrete poured roof, then maybe
Hmm.
wind may not be as detrimental to you as a
Right.
owner than if someone has a,
Hmm.
frame building. They may need that because if it goes, it's going.
Yeah. So this isn't on the questions that I prepared for you, but
Okay.
if somebody's renting space, should they ask to see the insurance policy for the space they're renting?
They should. They should
Hmm.
know their liabilities as well.
Yeah.
So if you come in which we did here, we
Hmm.
did a build out.
Right.
So you rent your space
Right.
and the landlord has insurance for the dwelling, but
Hmm.
they're not going to have insurance for your build out.
Right.
So you need to take that into consideration.
Yes.
Contents is never insured by the landlord.
Hmm.
So if you have, $20,000 worth of office equipment and you don't have that insured, when God forbid a fire comes or the H word, you're going to be
Yeah.
redoing everything on your own if you don't have
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah. It's important. Yeah.
So there's a big difference between general liability, which is the slip and fall, and
Oh,
professional liability. So
yes.
people like you
Right.
and myself, any doctor,
Hmm.
mortgage broker,
Yeah.
anyone who offers,
Esthetician, like I
yes,
used to do,
professional
still
advice.
am. Yeah.
General liability is good to have for them when they walk into your brick and mortar building.
Right.
But professional liability, absolutely hands down, needs to be sought after to
Hmm.
protect the business.
Good point. Any other advice you'd want to give someone opening or operating a small business in Cape Coral?
Just know what you're getting into in the space that you're getting into to make sure that it can be insured. So before you sign a lease or purchase, definitely check out what it'll cost you to do for the insurance for that, and if you can get wind.
Yeah, great advice. Great. From an insurance perspective, let's talk a little bit about home buyers. What should they be thinking about before they purchase a home? We kind of mentioned a few of them, but anything stand
Well,
out to you?
today for someone to call me and say, "Oh, I'm looking at 3 properties. I want to rate on all 3." It's not as easy as it used to be because we're going to be looking for the 4-point. We're going to be looking for the wind mitigation. Knowing, the age that you're going to purchase plays a big part. We just discussed that.
Mhm.
The inspections, that you do are extremely important, but usually that's done after there's a contract in place.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
With a clause usually that usually we use the as is contract. So you have a period of time to back out, but and they call that the inspection period. But that's when you really want to be talking to Margie,
absolutely
because if you find out that there's an issue insuring it during that inspection period, you can still, you know,
back out.
back out,
Hmm.
back out that contract.
And that's important.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So we talked a little bit about this, but are there things sellers can do ahead of time to help avoid insurance issues during a transaction?
The mechanical.
Mechanical. Yep.
So if you walk around, you go underneath your sink and you see that corrosion, and the corrosion is like a white, starting white, but then if you see the
Green.
green, blue green,
Right.
that is a huge flag.
Yes.
One, that there's a possible leak, that the
Mm-hmm.
copper pipes or whatever are corroding, but two, you can't shut it off.
Right.
So that's a huge
Right.
no-no for insurance companies.
Yes.
Air conditioning, making sure that that is maintained,
Mm-hmm.
because the 4 point, we'll talk about that. Certain electrical boxes are huge, and
Right.
certain plumbing. Polybutylene is a very big problem if you have that.
Yes.
So that inspection is done for a reason, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're going to be
Right.
safe in your home as well
Right.
as insurable.
Right. And that's a good point. That's why I usually recommend my sellers they get a pre-listing inspection. So they know these things, and sometimes they're kind of appalled at what's been going on in their house that they didn't know. So even if they weren't going to sell their house,
That is a smart move to do. Get
having
that four
that
point.
done and just making sure everything is. Some people don't know what to look for, or they're not
Right.
handy enough to understand the mechanics of the mechanicals.
Right. And then, flood insurance is, you can acquire that or assume that
Hmm.
from a buyer
Right,
or a seller.
right,
A
right,
buyer can, but
right,
homeowners, you cannot.
right, right. And, you know, let's talk a little bit about flood insurance. What's your top things that I mean, the rate is the rate, but
Well, that's because of FEMA is the driving
right,
force
right.
behind it. So FEMA has contract with hundreds of insurance companies
Hmm.
that they can write a flood policy. However, it's still rated and by FEMA.
Hmm.
So I could go to 100 different insurance companies, and the rate's the rate, the rate.
Right, right.
Having an elevation certificate can help. In a
Yes.
lot of cases, it used to be mandatory. I could not insure a home for flood without an elevation certificate, but they have a new rating system,
Hmm.
and you really don't have to have one anymore.
Oh, that's
It's
good to know.
You do not have to have an elevation certificate, but on an older home, it might help.
Okay, definitely.
The newer homes,
Hmm.
they're built higher
Right.
than an older home. So that flood rate right out the gate is going to be better.
So one thing Margie taught me when I was first starting out in the business is all of Florida is in a floodplain. People always ask me, when they're looking to buy, is that house in a floodplain? Well, the answer is always yes. But it doesn't mean that your mortgage company is always going to require you to have flood insurance. And I would like you to speak to if it doesn't require you to have flood insurance, what do you recommend?
So flood zones, usually A zone and an X zone. So the A zone is the highest risk. An X flood zone is when if you have a mortgage company, they're not going to require
Right.
you to have flood insurance. However, I say this sarcastically, if we flood like we did with Ian,
Mhm.
the flood is not going to say, oh, can't go over there, it's an X zone. So look into it. The rate is much better for an
Yes.
X than it is an A.
Right.
And if you're thinking, oh, I'm never going to flood, think again. But
Because it's not just an H that's going to bring flooding
mhm,
potentially, right?
potentially, yeah. So just make sure, be mindful, be educated.
Mhm.
I'm a big, big component about educating people for insurance, and
Right,
then flood insurance is included in that.
right,
But an ex flood zone will not make you have insurance for if you have a mortgage.
right. So, so we talked about contacting an insurance agent in the buying stage when you first go under contract, but how about when you're building? When do you speak to an
Well, a
insurance
builder
agent?
will have the builder's risk usually.
Okay.
Some people purchase their lot
Hmm.
and the builder still will have the insurance on that. It's called a builder's risk. If they don't, then you, as the insured, need to purchase the builder's risk.
Right.
And basically, what that means is, you're starting off with an empty lot, but by the end of the build, it would be a $500,000 house. So, and then when that's over, then you need to roll that into a homeowner policy.
Okay. So I've got like two questions left here. This is going by so quickly. What do you think homeowners and business owners should be paying the most attention to right now?
Other than a rate, the price.
That might be it.
Well, that might be it, but also keep
Have
in
prices
mind
been going down at all?
they have.
Okay.
But keep in mind, just because your premium is higher than your neighbor
Mhm.
doesn't mean your policy is like their policy.
Good point.
So they may have a 10% hurricane deductible. They may not have replacement costs. They may have a much less dwelling amount than you do. You should always insure at 100% replacement. So replacement costs in my world is not market value. It is in your world because
Right.
you're selling the land with it. I'm not
Hmm.
insuring land. You don't insure your land. Nothing can happen to your land.
Right.
The house can leave and the land will still have that value. So
Right.
for me, the
Which is
replacement
why it's a
cost.
good investment.
Yeah, exactly. It's the truth. It's the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah. Um, oh, and I hate when this happens because I was going to ask something or say something that's not on here. So I'm going to go to my last question for you, and it's going to come to me. If there's one thing you wish people better understood about insurance in Florida, what would it be?
Your policy coverages. Um, Back in the day, we had policies that were catastrophic policies like medical insurance. You purchased it in case something bad happened to you. And then the insurance companies, it was a soft market, so they tried to compete. So then they would add all these whistles and bells. But in my opinion, when you have a bunch of whistles and bells and your policy's packed with extras, if you use those extras in a claim, it's a claim and
Right.
it's held against you. So why have a ton of whistles and bells when you're not going to use them? So be
Right.
mindful of your policy.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say do bare bones policy, but in my opinion, of all these years, having all those coverages increased cost to you. If you're never going to use it, why have it?
Right.
Because a claim is held against you for 3 years.
Really good point. Really good point. And I remember what I was going to say.
Ah,
This time last year, there were some statistics that came out. I think the might have been the governor's office that reported them for 2024 to 2025. That um, one was, and this might have even been NAR. Florida was not the most expensive state for insurance. It was the number three, which kind of was like a little bit of a win for those of us who are trying to sell property here, and that Florida had the least percentage increase from 2024 to 2025, which was another little bit of a win. So in 2025, we did see some reductions and we had a great H season. So I'm feeling like we're getting into a more manageable time to be able to purchase a house with insurance and not have it be
crazy.
wrecking the whole deal.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's the
It
truth. So the
it is
rates,
okay.
we are seeing that downturn I mentioned earlier in the
Mhm.
rates. And also, the underwriters are
Mhm.
easing up.
Yes.
So, with that being said, they still have their strict guidelines about a roof, about a
Hmm.
certain electrical box, what kind of plumbing you have. But if the home is maintained
Right,
and your inspection shows it, keep in mind also, even though you're doing the 4 point inspection, the insurance company is going to send someone out there to do their own inspection.
right.
And with that is because it used to be insurance. If I said, oh, the house have this in there, and people fib and ruin it for the other people who don't.
Yes,
So things are not taking at face value anymore. They want proof.
yes.
So, with that being said, I do see the market going down. I do see things easing up. Reinsurance is easing up for us. And let's pray that we can keep a season this year like we had
Hmm.
that year for the hurricane.
Yes.
And if that's the case, it'll be a downtrend
Right.
again.
Right. And weather goes in cycles. I remember the 13 years ago before I moved to Florida, there had been a really long stretch of no big major storms. I think Charlie had been the last one in
4.
2004.
Mhm.
Yes. And then we didn't see anything until Irma. And Irma wasn't really bad in Cape Coral too much for
No.
claims. But up north, I had two H's and two blizzards within 18 months, and you see what's happening up north again. So it's like I feel like all the weather events are have shifted, and I'm really concerned about the people where all the ice is, like in Tennessee. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of insurance claims from that ice,
Or the fires in
right? The
California.
fires in California.
So I
So
agree.
yeah, yep. So you really can't pinpoint one area as being, you know, the worst because it changes.
It does.
It does. So I just kind of want to, thank you all for sitting in on this conversation with Margie. I think we all learned a lot about insurance, a lot about insuring in Cape Coral and Lee County, which is what we both specialize in. And it's such an important part of homeownership and even businesses here. We think it's important to share this kind of information from time to time and keep everybody informed. Do you want to say anything else about living in Cape Coral from a personal standpoint
I
before we sign
do.
off?
The move here was the best, hands down, best thing that ever happened to my family. Yeah. And it was, in hindsight, when you're moving, you're so emotional and, you're missing your family or friends or whatever you're moving from. But I live in paradise and I do
Hmm.
love, love, love living here. So
Me too. Me too. And you will see, this is only my second interview for with local businesses here, but you will see the lifeblood of Cape Coral is small, independent, local businesses. It is a great place to own and operate your own business, and we all help each other.
it's a great community.
It is a fabulous community. So thank you for joining us, and until next time, live well in Cape Coral.